I'm excited to announce that Doug Cartwright and Alchemy Sales are launching their third Alchemy Fest. This is going to be the best one yet. I will be there. You will have exclusive access to me, a lot of my trainings, my design work, so that you can dominate in all aspects of life. I focus on the whole person paradigm, and I will help you live your life by design through my framework that you will receive at Alchemy Fest. Join us at Alchemy Festival 2024 from October 4th through the 7th at Camp Navarro in the Redwoods of California. Head over to the link in the description and remember to use code LLBD200 for the special discount that I am offering. Can't wait to see you there. Now, let's all jump into this next episode. Okay, we have Mr. Jim McMahon in the house. How you doing today, Mr. Jim?
Doing well after that party last night. It was a good time. I got to see a lot of guys I haven't seen in quite a while, so it was fun to catch up.
Who you're the most excited to catch up with from last night?
Oh, I love seeing Goose. I get to see him quite a bit.
He's passionate, isn't he?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But I got to see Byron Scott, Andre Dawson. I haven't seen in a long time. Who else? I mean, it was just like a who's who of people in there last night. But it was a really good time.
That's awesome. Okay, so you were born in Jersey City, is that right?
Born in Jersey City. I was only there for, I think, 2 years, 2 maybe 3. Then moved to San Jose, California. That's where I grew up until my junior year in high school, and then my dad's job moved him to Utah, which was quite a culture shock. Growing up in San Jose and with the brothers and the Mexicans, and then you go up there and you can't find either one.
So how long were you in Utah before your BYU days?
I just played my last 2 years of high school ball there, and then 5 years at BYU.
And then big baseball player as well. Was it more baseball or was it more football or a combination of the two? How did that
baseball was always my first love, my favorite sport. And going to college, that's how I chose. Well, I didn't choose BYU, but the only schools that said I could play both sports was either BYU or Nevada, Las Vegas. And I went back to Nebraska, Oklahoma State, all the big schools back then. And they all said, no, you're not going to play both sports. And so I said, well, I'm not coming here. And Vegas happened to be my last recruiting trip. And I had a really good time in Vegas. And I came home and said, Pops, I'm going to Vegas. And he said, no, you're not. It's not a big enough school. I said, I don't care how big the school is. I said, they just offered me a house, car, money, easy job at the casino. Hell, I could have been Steve Wynn. But I think he was thinking Dead from Strippers. So he said, no, you're not going to Vegas. And that's how I ended up at BYU.
Was it, obviously, I think most everybody watching understands the culture of BYU, the high, religious culture. Was it much of a shock when you first came in, or did you kind of already know what you were getting yourself into?
Well, being in Utah for the 2 years prior to going to BYU, I got a taste of it. And like I said, I grew up in a whole different world.
Sure.
And so I kind of understood it a little bit, but I had no idea the scrutiny that I was going to have down at BYU. I mean, it wasn't that bad in high school. I mean, they all wanted me to go to what they called it, a seminary or something. You had to go to a church thing before school, and I never did that. And so I grew up a Catholic, and so it was always it was strange to me, some of the rules and the things that they had you do, but got through it.
That's awesome. And then when I first met you, it was at an event that BYU had done. I guess, what are the ties like still at BYU, your alma mater? Do you still contribute quite a bit to the university? How does that all look today?
I'm going on a BYU cruise next April. I've never been on a cruise in my life. And Tommy Homo is the AD there. Tommy was a teammate of mine at BYU. So whenever he asks of a favor, I'd be happy to help him out. So it was a strange experience for college. I mean, most guys that went to college had a good time and had a lot of fun, and it wasn't like that at BYU. It was Friday nights or Saturday afternoon, whenever we played, that was fun. The rest of the time was rough. I didn't go to a lot of class, I was there for 5 years because I redshirted a year, so I should have been able to graduate on time, but I didn't. I didn't graduate till I think 2015. I went back and took 5 classes and I got my degree because I promised my folks that I'd graduate, and then LaVell Edwards was on me about getting my degree because he wanted my name on the stadium. He says, "Look, you deserve that. Get it done so we can put you up there." And that was the motivation to get it done.
That's probably when I met you then. Is when that happened.
It was during that time, I think.
Yeah. That's cool. And then
I studied more in that 6 months than I did in 5 years of school that I was there. So it was tough, but I'm glad I got it done.
You got it done, and now your name's there, so that's good. Talk to me about your baseball career, because you chose BYU to be able to double roster. When did baseball end and football completely take over?
Well, my freshman year, I think I played about 8 games baseball. But I couldn't. They said I could play baseball, but they didn't tell me I couldn't get out of spring football practice. So I play a game of a doubleheader, and playing in the outfield, throwing the ball from the outfield is a lot different than throwing it from the pocket. And I was having some arm problems already. I had dislocated my shoulder my sophomore year in high school, and so it took me a while to get back to throwing, and it was starting to bother me again. And so I knew I had to make a decision. Since football was my scholarship, I just stuck with football.
Love it. Okay. When you were growing up, was it more, hey, I'm going to hit MLB? Was it more, I'm going to hit NFL, or neither?
No, I wanted to be a baseball player. That was my game. I thought I was a better baseball player than I was a football player, but it just didn't work out that way.
Yeah. And then what was your greatest defining moment playing at BYU? What was that moment you cherished the most?
Probably the 1980 Holiday Bowl. And we were playing against SMU. That was the best team money could buy at the time, and they had a lot of great football players there. And we were getting spanked in the first half. I didn't play well in the first half. That's the reason we were down so much. But we were able to come back. With 4 minutes to go, we're down 20 points, and we ended up winning the game. So that was the game that people still talk about. It was the first time that BYU had won a bowl game too, and so it was. That's what I wanted. I wanted to win a bowl game for LaVell, and we were able to come back and win that somehow. And then we ended up winning again the following year. So to win the first 2 bowl games for him, that was my defining moment.
And what did you admire the most about LaVell as a coach?
I think what he did that was great was he hired good coaches and he let them coach. He wasn't involved in the day-to-day. I mean, he was out there every day, but he wasn't in meetings, but he let these guys do what they do. And what he did, he knew he had to do something special to get some national recognition. And so throwing the football was the way to do it. And he was able to get great offensive coordinators. In fact, the best one I've ever played for was Doug Scoville. He was my coach my freshman year. Then he went away, came back. But he was just an offensive genius, and it was so much fun to play in that offense. Still the best offense I'd ever played in. We're going to get 5 guys out every play. You can't cover 5 guys. You got to be able to block, though. That was the key to our success, was our offensive line, and that's never going to change. If your O-line sucks, you're not going to win. You got to be able to stand up against these guys, and we did that.
Okay, that's awesome. And then talk to him about your start in the NFL. How did that go? How did it begin? Was it rocky? Was it smooth sailing?
Well, originally, before I even got drafted, I was supposed to go to Baltimore. Baltimore Colts were interested. I went back to Baltimore a few times after the combine. I was eating dinner and lunch with Johnny Unitas at his restaurant, telling me all about the city and this and that, how I'm going to love Baltimore. But I'd forgotten I had told my agent I didn't really want to be in Baltimore. I'm from the West, or grew up in the West Coast. I wanted to be somewhere where it was going to be warm. And so I had no idea who was picking 5th. So draft day comes along. I'm sitting at home with my family, and we're watching the draft. It wasn't like everybody's back in New York like they are now, or wherever they have the draft now. And so when Pete Rozelle got up on the mic and said, with the 4th pick, the Baltimore Colts select quarterback, so I'm thinking it's going to be me. And it says Art Schleister, Ohio State. And I was like shocked. I'm like, damn, what happened? my attorney called me right away, and he goes, "What'd you think?" And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, you told me you didn't want to play there, so I told him not to draft you." I said, "Okay, cool." And then the Bears were picking next. I had no idea who was picking fifth. So then I got a call from Chicago, and they said, "Hey, we're going to draft you." I said, "All right, cool." They go, "Can you get on a plane and come to Chicago?" So 3 hours later, I'm in Chicago. They felt so highly of their first pick, they sent the film guy to come pick me up at the airport. And so as we're driving back to the Hallis Hall, it's about a 45-minute ride. And I'd just taken a 3-hour plane trip. There was beer in the limousine. So I popped a couple, and as I'm getting out I wasn't even thinking about the press for some reason. So as I'm getting out of the limo, I think there was 2 more beers on the string. I grabbed them with me, and I get out of the car, and all of a sudden the press came out. Whew, I'm like, oh, no. And so the first time they see me, I'm standing there with a beer in hand and a couple in the other hand, and Coach Dickett happened to be walking by at the time, and he looked at me and he says, "So you're my first-round pick, huh?" And I said, "I guess so." That's the first time I'd met Mike, and so now I'm supposed to go meet George Halas. So I'm sitting in front of his secretary I had to have been 45 minutes to an hour, just sitting there. And finally I said, "Hey, what am I doing here?" I said, because I had some friends on the team, Keith Van Horn, my right tackle, Kenny Marjoram, who had met at some All-America teams a year prior. They were in town. They wanted to take me out and celebrate. And so I said, "What am I doing here?" And the secretary said, "Well, Mr. Halas would like to talk to you, but he's taking a nap." And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Wake his old ass up. I got things to do." So she went in and woke him up. And as I'm walking in, the first words out of his mouth was, "You're too short. You got a bad eye. Your arm's suspect." He goes, "Maybe you should go to Canada." That was my introduction to George Halas. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, why'd you draft me, old man? I mean, who's in your scouting department?" And he'd already had a contract for me. I mean, I got drafted 4 hours prior, and he's got a contract, and he slides it over. And at this time, remember the USFL, that league was just starting to come in. And the Chicago team of the USFL was being coached by George Allen, the old Redskin coach. And I had a meeting with him 3 days after the Halas meeting. So I knew I had somewhere to go. So when he slid the contract towards me, I just saw one number. I picked it up, I rolled it up, I said, "I ain't signing this." I threw it at him, I walked out. That was my intro to the NFL.
Wow.
So 3 days later, I meet with George Allen. He offers me a hell of a deal, part ownership of the team, I mean, all kinds of good stuff. And I said, "George, you put this in writing, I'll play for you. But you have to do it within the next, I think it was 10 days or something." Because they told all the rookies that year, they said, "If you don't sign by July 15th, you're ineligible to play that year." And 2 guys did, Marcus Allen and I think it was Darren Nelson from Stanford. They both signed after, and they were able to play. So I knew the NFL was full of shit at that point. And so George never came back to me with that contract. So I ended up signing that contract that he unrolled it for me, and I had to sign that bullshit deal. There was guys in the second round made more than I did.
But what was the explanation? Why did he take you as the number 5 pick?
He never said.
He never said?
No. But I ended up having to play for that money. I think it was like 100,000, 150, 190, first 3 years, which I played for. But the first year we had a strike. So I think I made 50 grand, so I took home 35 grand my first year in the NFL. And I thought, shit, I could have worked at McDonald's for this.
No doubt.
But, oh well, but that's how it was back then.
Crazy. So talk to me about your first Super Bowl.
Well, that came about after the 1985 season. 1984, we went to the NFC Championship game and didn't win. We ended up winning it all in '85. We were 15-1, and people forget how good we were the following year. We went 14-2 in 1986. Had the best record in the league. Should have won it all then. That's the year I hurt my shoulder. Had shoulder surgery. We ended up. We played in 3 NFC Championship games in 5 years and only won one of them. So, but we had a hell of a football team. Nobody wanted to play us, that's for sure. We had great players, And our defense, it was a new defense. Buddy Ryan's defense, people couldn't figure it out for a couple of years. Joe Gibbs was the first coach to figure it out. You got to block 8 guys and run 2-man routes, and you could beat us. And that's what they did. We lost 2 years in a row at home to Washington in the playoffs. And then the biggest loss that I ever had was the only time I ever lost to Montana is 1988, the NFC Championship game at home in Chicago. And that still kind of stings. But,
Who was your favorite teammate or couple favorite teammates on the Bears?
Well, I always hung out with my old linemen. Those guys are my bread and butter, man. If those guys aren't good, then, like I said, you're not going to win games. So my roommate for 6 years was Kurt Becker, offensive guard. Keith Van Horn, still good friends. Jay Hilgenberg, my center. Jimbo Covert just got in the Hall of Fame a couple years ago. Yeah, those guys were always fun to hang out with.
Awesome. Biggest lessons that you learned throughout your career in the NFL? Couple gems that you can share with viewers.
I've always figured that you can't always listen to the coach. The coach isn't out there every play. They're on the sidelines. They see things differently than what I see. And even watching film, I hated watching film because the films are always taken from the top of the stadium, and you're looking down. You can see everything from there. But I said, I'm 6'1". I couldn't see a hell of a lot over those people. But where they lined up, that's what told me what they were playing. So I never had a problem reading defenses. And Mike Ditka wanted to be, involved and call every play. And he'd send plays in he was a tight end. I had many discussions with him. I said, look, Mike, you're a tight end, and that's how you call plays, like a tight end. You have no idea what the hell you're doing. And I said, just put 10 guys in that you like and leave me alone. We'll be fine. But he wanted to be in control of things. So he'd send plays in, and I'd look over, and I ain't calling that. And I'd call something else. And everybody in that huddle knew that I knew what I was doing. So they always had my back and said, let's do it. We got in a lot of arguments about it, but I said, look, I'm just trying to win games here. If it's making you upset, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to do stupid things. And I'm not going to run into brick walls, and I don't have to. And so we had a lot of clashes about that, but I think after I left, he finally understood I knew what I was doing.
That's cool. I'm sure it was tough at first, and then you guys came to terms once the results started coming in the way in which they did.
Well, early on, my rookie year, the other 2 quarterbacks were Vince Evans and Bob Avellini. They'd been in the league, 7, 8, 9 years, and they weren't very impressive. And I think he wanted me to play early, which I did too. And so I was able to play my rookie year. And then I think it was I started the second half of the second game my rookie year. And then I started from then on. But, it was tough at the beginning. But, we weren't very good. 82, 83, we sucked. Defense was pretty good, but offensively we were bad, even with Peyton, because everybody knew, Peyton's getting the ball pretty much every play. I remember my first start against I think it was the Lions. We were notorious 3rd and long, we're going to run sweep, right? So it happened to be 3rd and 7, I think. And, of course, the sweep was called. So I get to the line of scrimmage, and there's 8 guys over here waiting for the damn sweep. And I was having a hell of a time trying to figure out. I just wanted to run a simple off-tackle play the other way. And from Little League until I got to the pros, even numbers were to the right. But when I got to Chicago, even numbers were to the left because Dick had just come from the Cowboys, and Tom Landry was a defensive guy. So that's how he saw things. And so it was tough for kind of everybody to figure out, okay, even's over here now. But I finally figured out, okay, 34. So I spit out 234 and my left guard, and 34 wasn't in the game plan that week, but it's a simple play that you've run 1,000 times in training camp and practice. And my left guard, who was so keyed into what was in the game plan, he looks up at me. He goes, 34? What the hell's 34? I said, we're running right over you, Bootsy. Block that guy. And sure enough, I give it to the fullback off tackle. He gains, I think, 9 yards for a first down. And as we're coming back to the huddle, Noah grabs me. He goes, you have any more surprises for me, youngster? I said, look, dude, I'm not running into a brick wall. I said, keep your ears open. I said, I will change the play. And then Walter, that's the only time he ever said anything to me on the field. He talked to me right after that. He said, hey, keep doing what you're doing. He goes, I don't want to run into that either. I don't think they ever changed the play before I got there. And it was amazing. He lasted 6 years prior to me getting there with the line that they had. But, yeah, it was just it was kind of fun, but it was frustrating as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And then from what I've read, you've done quite a bit of work with concussion and, what comes with getting beat up so much on the field. You've done a lot with that awareness. Maybe talk to us about that, your involvement there and what you see.
Well, I mean, this is a tough game, man. People are going to get hurt, and your brain is floating on fluid, right? It's not stuck to anything but your spinal cord. So it doesn't matter how good the helmets are. I see these guys now with these bubble things on their head in practice. I mean, that does absolutely nothing. Because when you're running at that speed and you stop, your brain's going to hit the side of your head. And that's never going to change. So we're trying to, just let them know that none of these things are really working. But when the guys do get hurt, they need time to recuperate. Some guys recuperate faster than others, but some injuries you just don't know how long they're going to last. Now, I've been dealing with this now for, I think they diagnosed me back in 2012 maybe. I did a Sports Illustrated cover, and they talked about the problems I was having. I was literally a vegetable. I was spending weeks at a time in a dark room, just laying down, and that's the only time I felt halfway decent. And then these doctors in New York explained to me the reason why when you're upright, gravity's pushing down on your head just enough, because I had some problems in my neck where the bones were getting pushed together, so the spinal fluid couldn't flow properly. And when it started backing up into my brain, it's just very painful. And so when I laid down, at least it took some of the pressure off. So he explained that to me. And they do it's called a image-guided atlas treatment. It's a machine. It takes me literally longer to lay on the table and get in the right position and he puts this thing behind my ear, doesn't touch my skin. He hits a button, and all I hear is a click. And what that does, it sends a vibrating pulse through there, and it moves the bones enough to let the stuff out. And when he first did it, well, first of all, they sat me down and explained to me what they thought was happening. And then they put me in the CAT scan, and it confirmed what was going on. You just see all the stuff pooling in on top of my head. And the first time he did that procedure, I sat up, and literally I could feel this stuff leaving my head. It was like, I explained it like a toilet flushing. It just ran out. And it gave me so much relief. My eyes were jaundiced. I couldn't really talk much. And I said, Doc, I don't know what you just did, but I feel a hell of a lot better already. And he says, well, I'm glad that happened. He goes, but unfortunately, this thing's been out of whack for so long. I don't know how long it's going to stay. So he made me stay there for a week. And after that first treatment, that night, it came back out of whack, and I was in excruciating pain. They had to actually sedate me the next day to put me, or to do that procedure again. I couldn't lay down. I couldn't do anything. And he goes, the longer I can keep this in place, the longer it will stay in place. And so the first couple of years, I would go every 3 months and get an adjustment. Or if I bumped my head or I slept wrong, I was starting having headaches, I'd go see him. But now I go about every 5 months. So it's staying there in there longer. At least I understand what's happening now. The guys that I've had a lot of teammates that have offed themselves because they didn't know what was going on. Because when your brain starts messing with you, man, you don't know what to do. At least now I know. So as soon as I start having headaches, I call them up. I'll see you in New York in a couple of days, and I get it taken care of. The only other option is drill a hole in my brain, run a shunt down through my neck and into my stomach, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. At least I know now what's happening, so I can kind of control what goes on from there.
Where do you feel the league is in regards to doing more about this situation? Do you feel
like I said, they're trying to do the right thing, but you're not going to stop people from brains from hitting the side of their skull. It's just not going to happen, especially linemen. I mean, linemen do it every play.
Yeah,
they're getting pounded every play. But I understand what they're trying to do, but I think if they just took care of the guys that once they got hurt, it'd be a lot better, because they don't really give a shit once you're out of the league.
Yeah. So it's the care and the
they
aftercare.
they could keep us all on their plan, their health plan, because it doesn't cost them an extra dime. It's a plan for many people. So, but they don't.
So I guess you haven't gone through what you've gone through and what you're going through currently. For parents that have their kids in football, what advice would you give the parents as their kids?
I wouldn't let them play. I've got 6 grandkids now, 5 boys, and I told my kids, look, don't let them play until at least get to be maybe juniors in high school, because by then their bodies are big. They're mature enough to actually put a helmet on. I mean, I see these little kids running around. They look like bobbleheads. They can't even hold their own head up, let alone a helmet. And my doctor sees so many guys, so many kids that he sees throughout the year that shouldn't be playing sports because their necks and heads are so screwed up from hitting each other.
What's crazy is,
I mean, little girl soccer players from heading the ball.
Yeah.
Cheerleaders from falling off their pyramids and stuff. I mean, he sees a lot of young kids that have no business playing any kind of sports.
Yeah. So I know in the game of soccer, at least in USA, regulated sports, they don't allow headers in soccer till you're like 10 years old or something like that. So they're trying to do something there, to at least not let them head until they're of a more mature age. Do you feel like youth sports is doing enough, or are they kind of just being super negligent?
Again, I don't follow it enough. I've been to a couple of my grandkids' game, but they're flagged. They don't have any helmets or anything on.
The way I view it, it feels like it's going the opposite way. Like kids are younger and younger and younger playing tackle football,
which is crazy. Yeah, like I said, I wouldn't let I'm hoping my kids don't let their kids play until, like I said, they're at least juniors in high school, where they're physically able to withstand the pounding, because it's a violent sport.
Yeah.
I mean, people get hurt all the time. But everybody, I knew I was going to have bad knees and elbows and shoulders and stuff, but nobody ever talked about the brain. And I mean, that's the biggest part. Your brain goes, the rest of you goes too.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, this has been awesome. Last question for you. A lot of the viewers are entrepreneurs, people that are running businesses, et cetera, and there's tons of obviously parallels with the business of sports, sports in general, and business. Advice that you would give the viewers to grab the bull by the horns and just go for success. What are some guiding principles that you would want to share with everybody in regards to that? Because it's always going to be tough out there. Thinking that there shouldn't be any problems is the problem. So what advice would you want to give us there when things get tough?
I got in the cannabis business 4 years ago with another ex-ball player, Kyle Turley. Ricky Williams was part of our group as well. And I've always been a proponent of cannabis. We all have a cannabinoid system in our bodies. We're supposed to be used in the plant. It's not a drug. It's a medicinal herb. I was back in Congress 3 months ago with Ricky Williams, walking the halls, talking to senators and congressmen about, fair banking, fair taxation, rescheduling. They've got cannabis Schedule 1 along with cocaine and heroin, which is ridiculous. Fentanyl Schedule 2. Fentanyl's killed how many millions of people? And, we don't have a fentanyl system in our bodies, or an Oxycontin system, or an alcohol system. We have a cannabinoid system. And it's the most regulated system in your body. And this plant actually heals from within. And it doesn't, where all these other medications, all they do is mask pain. So it's just, it's unbelievable. I think the tide is turning. People are finally starting to realize that we've been lied to over 100 years. The government's had a patent on it for over 100 years. They know how good it is. But Big Pharma runs this country. So I would just say, just keep your nose to the grindstone. Don't listen to the government. We're trying to do what's right and save people's lives. This plant saves lives. It doesn't kill people. So I'm going to keep pushing that.
Okay, so keep grinding, keep pushing.
Keep crying and keep pushing. Don't let the outside things bother you. I've never let what people thought about me or anything else bother me.
Well, the common denominator, I mean, you've always been viewed kind of as that rebel, that outcast or whatever, and it's always worked to your favor, but you're doing what people should be doing.
Yeah.
Like, you're doing what
I don't
you
listen
believe.
to all the bullshit. You know,
Yeah.
I've done it for I had my first joint when I was 13 years old.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
the
like,
only
damn, this is for me.
I mean, the people in the history books are the rebels, the defiant ones, the ones that are willing to challenge the status quo. If we all fell in line, like creations wouldn't happen.
Like all these people did during COVID.
Yeah.
All these sheep that took the jab. These people are dying like flies. That's not getting reported either. I mean, healthy young people just dying. And that's because of those shots.
Yeah.
And they lied to us about that. They're going to keep lying. I mean, that's what they do. That's how they get in office. But you got to be able to be your own man and stand up for what you believe, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Love it. With that, we'll call it a show. Thank you so much.
Right.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.